PT on ice. Let me get a little bit situated here. Get everything set up. All right. So it's Thursday, which means it's Leadership Thursday. So I wanted to talk to you all a little bit about words that harm, words that heal, and kind of some layers that maybe we're not thinking about in those things. But before we do, let's get some housekeeping squared away. You all know, if you're following us, it's Thursday, which means Gut Check Thursday. This week is a doozy. So it's a 20-minute AMRAP. If you're not familiar with that, it means as many reps as you can possibly do in that 20-minute time frame. So you're going to set a 20-minute clock. What you're going to do is one squat clean. Full scale would be 135 pounds. It's actually a clean and jerk. So you're going to do a full squat clean, then jerk the weight. So from the ground to overhead. Then you're going to do 5 pull-ups, 10 push-ups, 15 air squats, which is sort of the classic Cindy rep scheme. Now, Cindy is just the 5, 10, 15. So that's a nice benchmark for those of you that have been doing CrossFit for a while. But this one's a bit spicier because of that squat, clean, and jerk. But it even gets worse. So at minute 0, so like right as soon as the clock starts, and then again at the 5-minute mark, the 10-minute mark, and the 15-minute mark, you're going to get on either a rower or a bike, and you're going to hammer out 20 calories. So that's where this one's really going to get spicy, I have a feeling. I probably won't get around to this until Monday at the earliest. We've got a competition going on here in Hendersonville this weekend, competing in. So I'm taking it easy for the rest of the week because I've got 4 or 5 wads to do on Saturday. But this one looks good. A few more housekeeping notes. So I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Zach. I'm lead faculty with the spine division here with ICE. So I teach cervical and lumbar spine management. We've got a bunch of courses coming up this year. So if you haven't been on the ICE website, check it out. We have a map with dots all around the country of where the courses are coming, and they're literally all over the place this year. So the whole map looks really full. 2021 is going to be a big year for ICE. Coming up this weekend, Jeff's going to be over in Atlanta for lumbar spine. Next weekend, he'll be out in Alaska. Hold on. I think our Instagram is pausing. Looks like we're back. Okay. Instagram's back. The next weekend, Jeff will be over in Alaska again for lumbar. Then we've got some cervical courses coming up. So looks like Jeff will be in California over in the LA area. What's up, Jeff? I see your comment there. I saw you asking about the roads. We're getting some winter weather here in Nashville too, although it's anybody that's listening that's up north or out west, it's nothing that you guys would be too awful concerned about. Just a little bit of ice coming. Then Jordan's going to be over in Rome, Georgia. So cervical and lumbar are both going to be in that Atlanta area. So if you're in that area, make sure you grab those courses. Other things, all the live courses are starting back in the spring. So if you missed them at the beginning of the year, March, April, look for those coming up. The one I'm probably most excited about, probably because it's the one I haven't taken, is the rehab of the injured runner. So I'm looking forward. I'm going to probably try to jump into that March 2nd cohort and take that. That's an area that I'm going to touch on a little bit in today's episode that I am very unfamiliar with, but it's one that I want to get way more familiar with. So check out that one. Jason London and Megan Peach are going to be doing rehab of the injured runner, kind of a comprehensive management course that you can take from home. So if you're still unable to get to live courses for whatever reason, make sure you check out all of the online courses. They're going to be great. So let's go ahead and jump into the content. So if you all missed the paper, so it was a clinical commentary that came out in 2004 in the archives or Annals of Internal Medicine, or it may have been Archives. Either way, easy to find, free access now, by Susanna Bedell. It was called Words That Harm, Words That Heal. And she was really speaking to physicians at the time about trying to choose language that was a little less harmful for patients. So some of the things that jumped out in the paper were like certain metaphors that we use in medicine that can really scare patients and kind of get them more concerned maybe than they should be about medical conditions. Again, people that aren't as well educated about the different problems about their hearts, about their lungs, all of those types of things she kind of covered in that paper, and it really pushed medicine to take a second and try to watch our words. I think the PT community, and largely, I've noticed this even with orthopedic docs, has taken this on of like describing things as normal age-related changes, right? So like things like degenerative disc disease, that's like an awful label to give somebody. It gives them a lot of concern about their back or their neck, and maybe some of that concern is undue because it happens to almost everyone that lives long enough, right? So if you're familiar with the Brzezinski study, it's like, as the decade goes up, more and more people are going to deal with degenerative discs. So it's just generally a part of aging. It's not necessarily associated with pain. So those things have never tied together well. So we've really tried to choose words that heal rather than words that harm. And I was thinking about this the other day when when Hump Day Hustling came out. So if you're not familiar with Hump Day Hustling, it's just a weekly email. It came out yesterday morning. The faculty puts it together. Everybody sort of throws out an article that's relevant for clinical practice. Those articles can cover all sorts of things. So sometimes it's like fitness athlete topics. Sometimes it's just public health. We'll always let you know what courses are coming up. But there was an article that stood out to me that it was about running and knee OA, and running and knee and hip OA, which is certainly an area that honestly I have probably used words that harm around. So just to give you all some background, I've been doing CrossFit for 10 years. So the decade mark just came up. In that time, I have always been very defensive of CrossFit. So if you didn't see the post we put out a week ago, I think Alan may have put it together, where it was talking about different, or it was talking about the evidence that exists for CrossFit injuries or lack thereof, and how those injuries are the same as any other physical activity. And there were a lot of comments and a lot of shares and all sorts of things. But what often happens in the healthcare system is we sort of say, well, yeah, but be careful with your shoulder because I've seen, a few people that tore their labrum or whatever. So people will kind of ignore that evidence for the anecdotes of the folks that they see, and they'll really kind of blame CrossFit or blame whatever. It doesn't have to be CrossFit, but because of the anecdotes of the patients that they've seen, you'll hear practitioners, PTs, doctors, chiropractors, all of these folks will kind of use words that harm occasionally around CrossFit. Well, I really need you to be careful because you could hurt your shoulder, right? Well, the evidence has really never fleshed that claim out on the whole, but I can understand why people make that mistake because their anecdotal evidence right in front of them is really showing them that, this is happening. But that's the reason why we don't listen to anecdotal evidence. So that has always bothered me, and it's definitely been a pet peeve of mine in the past. And I think if you talked to me, you've probably heard me talk about that. It's certainly an area that I don't enjoy having to defend. I wish that any physical activity would be well promoted. When you consider the state of our country's health, I think a little bit of shoulder pain, a little bit of neck pain that you see occasionally is really nowhere near worth it for you to use any sort of words that harm, like, oh, be careful because you might hurt yourself. I'm defensive of it because I've been a gym member in 4 different gyms across the country. I've been doing it for 10 years, and what I have seen in those 10 years is a huge amount of people change their life, right? A huge, huge, huge amount of people. I've probably known somewhere around 15 to 20 folks that have lost 100 pounds or more. I've known a similar amount that have stopped taking their diabetic medication. They went back to their doctor. Their A1C was down. Their doctor said, hey, I don't think you need this metformin anymore. So I've seen a lot of people make really, really big life-changing, lifestyle modifications. And so it's close to my heart. I don't want people to be scared of doing CrossFit. And if medical practitioners are scaring people a bit, I've always been a bit defensive. So I think the reason that I've been so defensive is because I know a lot of the people making those comments have never been to a CrossFit class. They've never been inside the walls of that for that hour where they really understand exactly what's going on. And maybe there are some gyms out there that don't do as good a job managing that hour as others. But my sample size of being a long-term member of 4 gyms and probably dropping into neighborhood of 20, 30 gyms across the country just traveling for ice courses is that most of them do a great job. And I really bring this up because I'm guilty as well. So I think that's what hit me when I was reading that PT, or that Hump Day Hustling email, is that I have always really been defensive, right, of that. But I've probably had some words that harm around people that run long marathons, right? I've always sort of thought, man, that's tough on your body when you're putting mile after mile after mile through those knees, through those hips. It can get really tough on your body. Now, here's the thing. I've never done that. I run as part of CrossFit, but I've never run much more than 10K. So 10K is probably the most I've ever run. It's not like I've ever done any real amount of running. Never worked with a running coach. Never worked on bumping up volume over time. So I really have no idea what I'm talking about. And that hit me the most when I read that article. And the article was a systematic review, and it said it flat out, showed that folks, runners, active runners, people that have been running for quite some time, have much less hip and knee OA. So much less, 3.5% hip and knee OA in active runners compared to the sedentary population, which is over 10%. So it's really mind-boggling to me that I fell trapped to that same thing that I'm upset about, in that, like, maybe I've used some words around patients where I'm like, yeah, that's a lot of mileage, right? Ooh, that you better be careful. Make sure you do it right. Now, I still think, just like with CrossFit, we need to do everything right. We need to bump our volume up slowly and steadily so that our bodies can adapt. But we can't catch ourselves using words that harm around any physical activity. I think 2020 kind of showed us that any physical activity, anything we can do to maintain health in the population, is really important. The healthy folks did a lot better with COVID than those that had multiple comorbidities. We know a factor for multiple comorbidities is sedentary behavior. I'm as diehard CrossFit as anybody you know, but I have made the active decision that there's no way we should have any right to discourage any physical activity, and that includes marathon running, that includes any sort of high intensity gym, anything people are willing to do and enjoy doing that gets them physically active needs to be encouraged. And I think the words that harm that we started off with back in '04, avoiding these scarier terms, avoiding degenerative disc disease, right? Avoiding arthritis, trying to just get people understanding that they need to move forward regardless of what's going on underneath their skin. That's very important, but I think it goes a layer deeper here. We have to be really careful with our biases, really careful to check our biases when it comes to any sort of physical activity, and not rely on any anecdote. Yeah, you may have seen a CrossFitter who tore their labrum doing something up on the gymnastics bar. You may have seen a runner that had knee OA. Just because you've seen that doesn't mean that the evidence fleshes out that that activity is the problem, right? We have good reviews at this point that show that it's not the case. So don't use that anecdote of the patient in front of you to paint with a broad brush and potentially get someone fearful of a physical activity that could really change their life. That's really the main point I have for you. I'd love to discuss this further throughout the day. Like I told you, I've been very guilty of this in multiple ways. I have definitely been very guilty of this. And I think it's something that we really need to be careful with, because patients listen to our words and they hang on to our words quite a bit. You'll hear patients tell you something that a doctor or a therapist told them 20 years ago. Dustin Jones had a great episode a while back about we're all a Jerry PT, right? So a lot of the older adults he sees are still hung up on certain things that they were told 20 years ago. I think we need to really evaluate the words we're using and understand that people may hang on to that for the rest of their life. They may end up being 70, 80 years old and still worried about running because of something that I said that they might wear out their knees in the past, or something that you said with CrossFit about their shoulder, or any of these things. We need to understand that there's a huge weight of responsibility with the words we're choosing with patients. And that goes well beyond just their diagnosis. It goes into their daily activities, and we need to get them as active as possible. And in doing so, we have to really be careful to not discourage any physical activity. So that's all I've got for you. Make sure you check us out. Again, check that map. We're all over the place this year, so we will be near you most likely. If not, we've still got a few openings in 2021, so we would love to bring a course out your way. Just shoot us an email or hit us up on the ICE website, and we will get something squared away. Anyway, happy Thursday. Enjoy Gut Check Thursday. It's going to be a doozy. It looks a little simple on paper, but then when you see that little caveat of the 20-calorie row or bike, you know you're going to end up sort of spinning your wheels at some point during this one. So have a great Thursday. Finish your coffee. Get to work.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.